What if your baby monitor recorded not a lullaby, but betrayal in a whisper? Right arrow subscribe now, because some lies are caught between bedtime and betrayal. On the surface, everything looked like a postcard of American suburban peace. Mark Atwood, 39, drove his truck down the same quiet streets of Springfield, Illinois, each morning at 6:30, construction boots laced tight, thermos in hand, mind already thinking about the site schedule and subcontractors. He'd return by late afternoon to his modest white and blue two-story home, where a tricycle sat in the front yard and wind chimes danced above the porch. Inside, Alyssa would usually be prepping dinner, blonde hair tied back, apron smudged with tomato or flour. She taught kindergarten part-time, leaving her just enough energy for motherhood and a few social media posts about the joy of parenting. Their 2-year-old son, Caleb, had recently developed trouble sleeping, often waking in the middle of the night crying. That's when Alyssa suggested they buy a new baby monitor with audio recording features. Mark agreed. He liked having tools, solutions, control. The monitor was sleek, Wi-Fi connected, and even came with voice recognition. But peace is often the last thing you hear before the storm starts whispering. They had a babysitter, Olivia, 19, soft-spoken, and seemingly harmless, a local psychology student. She wore oversized sweaters, always smiled politely, and loved reading bedtime stories with dramatic voices. Alyssa liked her, said she was responsible, trusted her more than most family members. Olivia usually came in the evenings when Mark worked late or when Alyssa had errands or book club meetings. Just a few hours here and there. Nothing unusual, except lately, Mark had started to notice something off. Alyssa was more distant, not in any loud way. She still kissed him hello, still asked about his day, but she looked at her phone a little too long, laughed at jokes she didn't share, and flinched slightly when he touched her shoulder from behind. When they made love, less frequently now, she seemed distracted. Eyes open in the dark. He told himself it was stress, work, parenting, hormones. But when doubt sets in, it's like a leak in the roof, slow, but soaking everything eventually. One night, Mark sat alone in the nursery, cradling Caleb who had woken again crying. The monitor blinked red as it captured the sound. After settling the baby, Mark sat down in the rocker, flipping through his phone. On a whim, he opened the baby monitor app. It had an option to review recent audio snippets. Out of curiosity, he pressed play. At first, it was just the usual static. The rustle of sheets, soft humming. Then, a voice. Soft, gentle. "Good night, baby. I love you, and I love your mommy too." Mark's thumb froze over the screen. His entire body stilled. It was a male voice. Young, playful, unmistakably not his. He replayed it. "Good night, baby. I love you, and I love your mommy too." His heart slowed, but the pounding in his ears intensified. He played it a third time, then a fourth. Each time, the words stabbed deeper. He knew Olivia didn't have a boyfriend, or at least none she brought over. He knew Alyssa would never. Would she? He didn't say anything that night. Alyssa was already asleep, curled on her side, her phone glowing dimly beside her. He slipped into bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan rotating like a clock ticking down to something inevitable. The next morning, she smiled at him over coffee. Same smile, same oatmeal, same everything. "Did Caleb sleep okay?" she asked. Mark nodded. She didn't look up, didn't notice the way his hands trembled slightly when he buttered his toast. He looked at Olivia when she arrived that afternoon. Really looked. She greeted him cheerfully, picked up Caleb with practiced ease, laughed when the toddler grabbed her necklace. She looked innocent. But voices don't lie. Later that week, Mark told Alyssa he was going to upgrade the monitor again. "I think it glitched," he lied. "Heard something weird." "Oh," Alyssa said, too casually, "probably static." "Yeah, maybe." She turned away too quickly. The crack wasn't just in his trust now. It was in the walls. The routine, the rhythm of their life. He began to check the monitor each night, listening, gathering, wondering if maybe the voice had just been a fluke. But the house didn't lie. And whispers in the dark always tell the truth eventually. Mark hadn't said a word. Not to Alyssa, not to Olivia, not even to himself. But silence has a way of growing teeth. And his was sharpening. Each night after Alyssa fell asleep, he opened the baby monitor app and began listening to past recordings. What started as a search for clarity quickly turned into a ritual of self-inflicted wounds. He found more. Soft giggles, whispers, the rustling of sheets when no one should have been in the room. And names. Liv. No one will know. I miss this. Stop. He could be home. Mark sat at the dining table with his headphones in, his laptop screen glowing with the playback bar of the audio files. Each clip was a knife that didn't bleed. Each whisper etched another crack into his ribs. He didn't scream, didn't cry. Instead, he copied all the files onto a USB drive, tucked it into an old Altoids tin, and labeled it with a piece of masking tape, "House Repairs." He told Alyssa the monitor was glitchy, that he was taking it in to get serviced. She barely looked up from her phone. "Sure," she mumbled. That night, Mark watched her walk from the kitchen to the bedroom. The woman he had built a life with now moved like a stranger through his home. And he couldn't decide which was worse, her deception, or the fact that she didn't even try to hide it anymore. Even Olivia changed. She was still smiley, still polite, but her eyes flicked too fast when Mark entered the room. She stopped wearing makeup to their house, kept her phone face down, spoke in clipped tones, and she no longer looked Mark in the eyes. Then came Thursday. Mark left work early, said the site manager didn't need him that afternoon. Drove home slowly. He wanted to catch them, but also didn't. He hoped he was wrong, but his gut had long since cast its vote. He pulled into the driveway, silence in the truck pressing against his ears like rising water. The house looked peaceful, the way it always did. He entered quietly. From the hallway, he heard soft laughter. His bedroom door creaked, then footsteps. Olivia appeared first. She froze, hair messy, shirt slightly rumpled, barefoot. "Mark," she said, too brightly. "I was just." "Wrong room?" he asked, voice flat. She nodded quickly. "Yeah." Caleb wandered off. "I thought he was hiding." Mark said nothing. Then Alyssa appeared, fully dressed, hair brushed, holding a baby blanket. "Hey," she said, startled. "You're home early." "Yeah." Sight got rained out. No one moved. No one breathed. Mark walked past them into the bedroom. It smelled different. Perfume not Alyssa's. A heat in the air that wasn't from the vents. The monitor light blinked green on the nightstand. He didn't look at them again. Just took the monitor. "It's acting up again," he said. "I'll take it in tomorrow." They didn't protest. That night, Alyssa was quiet at dinner. Olivia left early. Caleb babbled and threw mashed peas across the table. Mark fed him gently, humming a tune. When Alyssa asked if everything was okay, he looked up and said, "You tell me." She blinked. "What do you mean?" Mark didn't answer. Instead, he opened his laptop again that night. Listened to every breath, every whisper, every lie. He wasn't ready to confront, but he was ready to know. Even if the truth didn't set him free. Even if it simply sat in his chest like a stone. The next morning, Alyssa tried to kiss him goodbye. He flinched. She looked hurt. And for the first time in weeks, Mark almost said something, but the words tasted like betrayal. So he swallowed them, and drove to work with the baby monitor blinking in his passenger seat. Mark had once believed in structure, in blueprints, schedules, materials you could measure and reinforce. But now, all the systems he trusted were crumbling. And like any engineer faced with a collapsing foundation, he turned to investigation. The night after seeing Olivia step out of the bedroom, Mark drove to the nearest electronics store and bought a discreet, motion-activated camera. He installed it himself that night, hidden behind the books on the living room shelf, angled toward the hallway and the entry to the bedroom. It wasn't paranoia now, it was data collection. He left the house as usual the next morning. Thermos. Kiss to Caleb. Nothing to Alyssa. His voice had grown so still it left echoes in the silence. That evening, after everyone had gone to bed, Mark retrieved the SD card and uploaded the footage. It didn't take long. There they were, two silhouettes in the dim hallway lighting. Alyssa first, barefoot, then Olivia, laughing in that way Mark once thought was for children. They kissed, not a quick goodbye, a slow, practiced ritual. Alyssa's hand cupped Olivia's cheek like she was handling something sacred. Then, both disappeared into the bedroom. Mark paused the footage, breathed, pressed play again. They re-emerged 20 minutes later. Alyssa had changed into pajamas. Olivia fixed her hair, a brief kiss on the cheek. It was worse than sex. It was routine. Mark's fingers hovered above the pause button, but he let the footage run until the hallway was empty again. The next day, he accessed their home Wi-Fi router. Through the login, he navigated to Alyssa's secondary email, a Gmail she never mentioned but always kept logged in on the family tablet. It was under a pseudonym, miss.alex.teacher@gmail.com. He clicked. Hundreds of emails, many with Olivia. He read the first few lines of several. Most were tame. "Thank you for today. You make the world feel soft. Next time, let's not wait a whole week." Then the deeper ones. "Your mouth last night, I can still taste you. I hate pretending. When I'm with Mark, it feels like cheating on you. If I didn't have Caleb, I'd run away." Mark scrolled through the dates. The messages went back months. Nearly a year. The baby monitor hadn't caught a single moment. It had caught a world. He closed the tablet. No yelling, no breaking dishes, no tears. Instead, he called a family law attorney the next morning. Her name was Dana Keller. Calm voice, direct. When Mark explained, she didn't gasp or pity him. She asked for evidence. He brought the USB, the audio recordings, the hallway camera footage, the emails. Dana watched in silence. At the end, she said, "This is enough for full custody. If that's what you want. But we have to act fast before she tries to spin a story." Mark nodded. "I don't want revenge. I want clarity, and I want my son." Dana looked at him. "Then we move quietly, but decisively." That evening, Mark watched Alyssa in the kitchen. She was humming while making dinner. Nothing was different, except everything. She set the table, smiled at Caleb, and glanced at Mark. "You've been quiet lately," she said. "Work." He lied. She nodded. "You okay?" Mark forced a smile. "Just tired." She touched his arm. "Let me know if you want to talk." And in that moment, Mark saw it. Not guilt, but compartmentalization. Alyssa didn't see herself as cheating. In her mind, love wasn't a binary. It was something fluid, forgivable, and always justifiable when wrapped in enough softness. That night, Mark copied everything onto a second USB and placed it inside a fireproof safe. Then he reread the emails again. One stood out. "Sometimes I wonder if you chose me because I reminded you of her." Her? He scrolled deeper, found an email chain dated nearly 2 years ago. Subject: First day jitters. "You were always my favorite student. I knew you'd be special." The reply: "And you never stopped checking in, even when I didn't want you to." Mark blinked. Olivia had been Alyssa's student. In middle school, he searched school district records online. Sure enough, Olivia had attended Jefferson Middle when Alyssa taught 8th grade. A photo on the school's old website showed Olivia at 14, next to a smiling Alyssa holding a Student of the Month certificate. This wasn't an affair. It was a long, slow manipulation. Mark leaned back in his chair, the pieces clicking together like slabs of concrete falling into place. He wasn't just divorcing a woman. He was confronting a legacy of blurred boundaries. Alyssa had brought Olivia into their home under the guise of trust. But this was more than an impulsive attraction. It had the texture of grooming, of control disguised as love. Mark printed the emails, organized the recordings. Every piece of paper was labeled, time-stamped, dated. He wasn't angry. He was prepared. The quiet husband had become the prosecutor, and the trial would begin soon enough. The room was quiet, but it buzzed with tension. Dana Keller, Mark's lawyer, had arranged the meeting in her office, neutral ground. A place where emotion could spill but still be documented. Mark sat on one end of the conference table, a legal pad in front of him. Hands folded, posture still. He looked like a man awaiting a sentence, even though he was the one delivering it. Alyssa arrived late. Her hair was damp from a rushed shower, and her makeup looked like it had been applied with trembling hands. She held her purse tight against her chest, as if it could shield her from what was coming. She glanced at Mark, who didn't meet her eyes. "What's going on?" she asked, feigning a calm she clearly didn't feel. Dana offered a measured nod. "Thank you for coming, Alyssa. Mark has something to share." Mark opened the folder in front of him. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he slid a USB drive across the table, then a stack of printed emails, then a photograph. Alyssa stared at them, her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Her fingers hovered over the USB like it might burn. "What is this?" she whispered. "Evidence," Mark said flatly. "From the baby monitor, from the cameras, from your other email account." A pause. Alyssa blinked rapidly. "I don't understand." Dana leaned forward. "Alyssa, these materials document an ongoing sexual and emotional relationship between you and Olivia Clark. They also suggest prior inappropriate contact during Olivia's adolescence, when she was your student." "That was years ago," Alyssa started, then stopped. Mark finally looked up. "Is this how you wanted him to grow up?" Alyssa, her face crumpled, not with guilt, but with panic. "Mark, I never meant for this to happen. I didn't plan any of it. It just happened." Dana remained composed. "Regardless of intention, your actions constitute a breach of trust and potential legal consequences. Mark is filing for emergency custody of Caleb and immediate divorce proceedings." Alyssa clutched her purse tighter. "Wait, you're taking Caleb away from me?" "You did that," Mark replied, "the minute you let someone else into our home, into our son's life." Tears welled in Alyssa's eyes. She shook her head. "I never stopped loving you. I love our family. You love the idea of being good," he said, voice colder than winter. "But you're not." Dana pushed forward the custody documents. "We can either do this with dignity, or we can escalate. Your choice." Alyssa looked like she was shrinking in her chair. Her voice, when it came, was small. "What about Olivia?" "She's not here," Mark said. "She's gone. Disconnected her phone, deleted her socials. You were her project, and now she's done." Alyssa flinched. The silence stretched again, but it was no longer the calm before the storm. It was the wreckage after impact. Mark stood, gathered the documents, and paused at the door. "You weren't just my wife. You were his mother, and you let both of us down." Alyssa didn't respond. Her shoulders shook, but the tears didn't fall. Somewhere, they had already dried. Outside, the sky hung gray, low and unsympathetic. Mark climbed into his car. The baby seat sat empty in the back. For the first time in weeks, he took a deep breath that didn't feel like a scream waiting to happen. He didn't feel victorious, just done. And sometimes, that was the only ending worth having. The courtroom wasn't loud. It never is in real life. Just shuffling papers, occasional coughs, and the weight of too much air between people who used to love each other. Mark stood beside Dana, stoic in a navy suit that didn't quite hide how little sleep he'd had in weeks. Across from him, Alyssa looked smaller than ever. No makeup, no jewelry, only the pale outline of a wedding ring she no longer wore. When the judge ruled in Mark's favor, granting him full custody with supervised visitation rights to Alyssa, there was no reaction, not even a whisper, just a kind of hollow finality. Alyssa blinked, nodded once, and lowered her gaze. It wasn't defeat she wore, it was absence. Like her body had remained while her mind had retreated to some echoing corridor far away. Olivia never appeared in court. She didn't need to. The university had launched its own investigation after the footage leaked online. A student-professor scandal was bad enough. A romantic relationship that began under the shadow of grooming. Unforgivable. Her enrollment was terminated within days. And the story made local news before the week was over. Mark deleted every social media account that night. He moved out of Springfield, back to Carson City, where his mother had a spare room and more patience than he remembered from childhood. Caleb adapted faster than expected. Children are like seeds. Give them light, a routine, and they'll push through any soil. Still, some nights Mark would hear Caleb crying in his sleep. Not loudly, just small whimpers, like memories brushing against his dreams. One night, as Mark tucked him in, Caleb asked, "Why doesn't Mommy tuck me in anymore?" Mark froze. The question didn't come with tears, just a kind of resigned curiosity. He wanted to say something true, something kind, but all he managed was, "She can't right now, buddy, but I'm here." Caleb nodded. That was enough, for now. The baby monitor still sat on the nightstand, its green light blinking softly in the dark. Mark had considered getting rid of it, but something in him resisted. Maybe because now, it was no longer a device of betrayal. It was a guardrail, a reminder. Most nights, there was nothing to hear, just the soft exhale of a sleeping boy and the occasional shuffle of blankets. But sometimes, when Mark sat outside the door with a glass of water and an ache too sharp to name, he would listen to the quiet hum of parenthood, and he would hum back. He began singing lullabies again. Not every night, but enough. A tune here, a whisper there, nothing elaborate, just the same old melody, mumbled through a tired voice. He never mentioned Alyssa to anyone anymore, not even his therapist. Her name had become a scar, visible, yes, but no longer bleeding. There were no updates. She lost her teaching license, applied for jobs at libraries, tutoring centers, was turned away. And Olivia, a ghost. Her parents moved her to another state. No charges were filed, but the damage was social, professional, permanent. Mark didn't rejoice in any of it. He just let it settle, like dust after an explosion. The house he eventually bought on the edge of town had 2 bedrooms, a garden, and no door between the kitchen and the living room. He didn't want secrets anymore, not even architectural ones. He kept a folder of the emails, the recordings, and the court documents locked in a drawer, not because he needed revenge, but because forgetting felt like a betrayal of the man he used to be, the man who trusted. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled low in the distance, Caleb crawled into his father's bed, clutched a stuffed rabbit, and whispered, "I had a dream Mommy came back." Mark kissed his son's forehead. "Was it a good dream?" "I don't know," Caleb said. She looked sad. Mark didn't respond. They lay together, listening to the rain tap the windows. The baby monitor blinked again, green and quiet. Mark stared at it for a long while. Then he closed his eyes. In the silence between one heartbeat and the next, he could hear everything that was lost. What if the walls in your home could speak? For Mark, it wasn't a scream, or a fight, or a confession under pressure. It was a whisper, recorded in the stillness of night, that unraveled his entire world. Some betrayals don't come with shouting matches. They arrive in silence, in hushes, in the pauses between bedtime lullabies and stolen moments. If you've come this far, thank you for walking through this storm with us. But the winds of betrayal never stop blowing. Subscribe now to Infidelity Chronicles, because next, we uncover a story not from courtrooms, but from a living room, where one accidental phone sync exposed 2 lifetimes of lies. Up next, Chelsea from Oregon, her best friend's phone synced to the TV by mistake. A tale where friendship, marriage, and trust collided, in 4K. Hit that bell, because sometimes, the next story might just be happening next door.